I'll tell you this, like I said, with the people with NPD or narcissism, where we start peeling back the layers, by the time you get down to layer 10 and you start looking in the gaping hole, it's not comfortable for them. And your heart does ache for them, because there's almost a childlike emptiness to them. For a person who actually has to live with that day in and day out, it's a nightmare. Interestingly, narcissism and depression can hang out together. A lot of it is that insecurity and that emptiness. It's not unusual to see those two kind of hanging out together.
But are they getting diagnosed with depression?
Sometimes they're getting diagnosed with depression because they might be very irritable. We'll see that in men. What will happen is you'll sometimes confuse the two as well, because a type of narcissism we're going to be talking about today is called covert narcissism. People who are covert narcissists, they're a little bit like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. It's like, woe is me, no one understands me, how come the world is so unfair to me? And they seem so downtrodden that they look depressed. And then all of us will treat them as though they're depressed, and we're making absolutely no headway. And then one day you dawns on you, like, oh, this isn't depression at all. So actually, quite frankly, we'll often treat the we'll think they're depressed before we'll think they're narcissistic.
Wrongly so.
But wrongly so. The covert or vulnerable narcissist. These are the woe is me narcissists. You know, if the world could see how great I am, I'd be one of the great ones. But nobody gets me because I'm ahead of my time. And so you'll often find them sort of at home, huddled over their computer, being like a troll or like coming up with their next big plan. But they almost have a failure to launch a lot of the time. They can often look depressed. They seem vulnerable because they almost feel like the world doesn't get them. They're hypersensitive to criticism, but they lack empathy, and they can be very entitled. Like, I deserve special treatment because, you know, the world doesn't know this, but I'm the best.
What's interesting about that is I listened to that, and when you would first meet somebody like that, you think, oh, they just have low self-esteem.
Yeah, bingo.
But all narcissists have low self-esteem,
bingo,
right?
Exactly.
That's why they're doing that.
Exactly. So the covert narcissists, they lead with that, but it's almost like they feel like they have this sort of strange, I always say that the covert narcissist has this sort of weird pause. They'll say, yeah, I went to that college, but I guess nobody cares. And they'll do that weird thing, you know, like, okay, well, that's a little bit of a strange pause, but they're like, yeah, I already read that book, but why would you care? You know, it's like one of those. It's like, wow, it's a little bit, there's an edge. It's almost like you're sticking your hand into a bucket of barbed wire. It doesn't feel good. It's like,
but even with those examples, even though they were just, you know, like random examples, I still feel the pain for that person.
Oh, they feel the world pass them by.
Yeah, but I don't feel the same way with a grandiose narcissist.
You won't as much, no. Yeah. The covert narcissist, though, ultimately will get to the point where they feel the world owes them something. The world owes me. And there'll be a real edge to them, you know, because they seem really sad, and you'll often try to help them, and you'll wonder why they're so ungrateful. Well, that's why that can feel really uncomfortable for other people who are so sympathetic to them, and wonder, why are they not ever saying thank you or recognizing all we did? There's 9 possible symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, which means there's thousands and thousands of possible combinations.
Right.
But if we were really to look at it in 5 patterns that I've sort of broken down in my book, and this is based on the theoretical work on narcissism, drawing from other people's work, when we talk about the types of narcissism, they're not really subtypes of narcissistic personality disorder, but there are different kinds of patterns we see of narcissism. And I think it's important to see the differences, because it shows us this doesn't look the same across everyone. And then some people say, well, that's not narcissism. The person I know acts like this. And I'll say, but it's a similar pattern. Let's get down to the brass tacks of what all narcissists look like. In all narcissism, we tend to see a lack of empathy, grandiosity, entitlement, superficiality, chronic seeking of validation outside of them, arrogance, and a real tendency towards rage, as well as a tendency to manipulate or exploit other people. Those you tend to see across the board to varying degrees.
Again, just highlighting how important it is to get the right diagnosis.
It really is, because these personality patterns also make treating other mental health conditions. For example, it's not unusual for narcissism to also be found coexisting with bipolar disorder, which is also a very messy kind of issue to treat, because the grandiosity of the mania and the grandiosity of the narcissism often collide. So you'll see that too. When I've worked with families, when they have adult children who are substance abusers and the adult child goes into rehab, I'll also know that adult child has narcissism. People who have narcissistic personality disorder or even narcissistic traits, there are several co-occurring patterns we can see that are more likely to happen. All forms of substance use disorders. You know, a lot of times it's to fill the emptiness or to enhance the grandiosity. So alcohol use, cocaine use, you know, a stimulant use, that kind of thing. So you'll see some of that. They're thinking their child's going to go to rehab, not only come out sober, but sweet. They come out sober, but they're still as irritable, invalidating, sort of mean as they always were. That part's not going to go away. That's the narcissism.
Maybe even more so?
Even more so. And you see this a lot in substance abuse treatment circles, that you see a lot of it together. Yes, exactly, because the substance use was sort of helping them kind of shore up their defenses. It can make treatment much, much more complicated. You'll also see a greater likelihood of, for example, like patterns that are sometimes labeled love and sex addiction, kinds of like compulsive sexuality, compulsive like relationship patterns. You'll see that coexisting with narcissism as well. It just makes everything that much harder to treat.
Yes.
That's what it is, because you don't tend to get as much emotion. There's a lot more defensiveness. I know more than the doctor. There is a lack of empathy. There's a lot of projection. All this stuff really makes it hard to do really deep psychotherapy with somebody. When we look at self, goal setting, empathy, and intimacy, that's another way to view narcissism. No matter what, it's just really it comes down to that core insecurity, that sense they cannot regulate themselves from the inside out, that they don't have a good sense of identity, and that they're really reliant on the world for telling them what they're about, which makes them actually quite resentful.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Check out the links below for more information on how to access this full series, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch new mental health videos every week. Did you like what you heard in this video? If you want to ask a MedCircle doctor a question directly, you can learn how by visiting the links in the description below.